Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy nearly Friday.
Happy nearly Friday, indeed. We are pre-recording, but full transparency as always. And welcome to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with technology, change, innovation. This week, we're going to take a look at, a number of things. We're going to take a look at technology, maybe a bit of cyber. But let's kick off, Ben, with claims. So I think you saw this, which is a kind of consumer article about claims, but always kind of needling kind of the poor quality. Not sure about this one.
Yeah, so we ran a claims event 2 weeks ago, which you were at, and I raised this, which was the mood music around claims in the insurance industry, and both the positive in that brokers are getting more interested in it as a part of the benefits for a customer, a good claims service, and measuring it, and two, the sense that actually at the same time the industry is very bad at all this stuff, and claims is really become the kind of epicenter of the problem. And the article I pointed at was one about Which starting a campaign on poor claims service and linking it into consumer duty. And they've done a survey and say that almost half of people are having problems of some kind, at least one problem on their claim. Which is fine. We've heard this before. We know there are these things. Now they link it into, as the article headline says, into premium soaring, and they talk about, obviously, because it's personal lines, a lot of motor policies, a lot of home and contents, all of which have gone up substantially. So let's just break it down a bit. So if you break it down and say, okay, well, what's the problem? Premium soaring. Well, look, there's no additional profit being taken here, and which uses the word rip-off, which usually should mean they're taking abnormal profits, which I don't think is the case. And you look at the motor insurance industry at the moment, most of them are losing money, and losing quite a lot of money because we talked about it before. The costs of fixing cars has gone up, the cost of parts has gone up, and particularly around EVs and so on. So premiums are going up because the cost of claims has gone up, and that isn't directly the fault of insurers. So let's be clear about that. Do they provide bad service? Occasionally, I regularly, I suppose they do. I would say that's probably true. But on average, while Which doesn't actually show its ratings here, there is a CII survey which is run regularly, which we've shown on the show. Now, that doesn't show that consumers, and they do a similarly large study with a customer satisfaction institute, and they show that there is a reasonable level actually of satisfaction with how claims are handled in terms of speed and so on and so forth. And it's always been, I think, my go-to as a survey for, is it terrible in the personal lines end? No doubt there are problems, and there have been problems, and insurers have admitted this. Aviva went on a few months ago saying, yes, they'd had problems in the motor area, etc. Claims had soared, for one. They got more and more expensive, for two. They had problems in their supply chains and getting parts, problems that are global, not UK-wide. So I'm not here to defend the industry, but I do think that the sort of language that's used here is just too strong. But by the same token, I think it shows that the insurance industry has to do a better job of communicating how it works and why premiums are going up. I think the part of the problem, if I look at it, is the desperately poor level of communications and the desperately small amount of investment that goes into it relative to the size of the industry. I just think insurance could do a much, much better job of this and head some of this off at the pass. Because I'm not saying life should be fair or business should be fair. Your perception is reality, but it is quite important, I think, that the facts are out there before people like Which get onto it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we were just talking off air before we came on, and I think it calls for the regulator to do more, which is a kind of catch-all phrase that where actually you've just pointed out it's more complex than that. What is a regulator supposed to do? And it feels to me like one of those stories that is a little bit, it's summer, there's not a lot of news around. Oh, let's pull this one out of the post bag. And the
other suspicion I have is that because part of this is about third parties as well, my suspicion is this has also come from some conversations that have been had with the regulator about this issue. Now, I'm sure the regulator has nothing to do with what Which actually writes or its narrative, but it does feel to me like there are some things in here that are concerns of the regulator, which I've spoken to them about, which are to do with how third parties handle claims. But again, I don't see here the clear evidence that there is a problem. I mean, I think there are some issues with third parties for sure, but all sorts of industries outsource and it can work reasonably well. And I think there's good and bad. And so I do think it's a bit of a summer story, but I think they're going to go on this campaign. And I think it's just another of these distractions that the industry needs to get away from, really, and not let someone else have the narrative, because once someone has the control of the narrative, all your good work is undone.
Yeah.
All the claims that are paid, all the claims that are done quickly. And, we know the industry is trying hard. We know people in certainly the commercial end of things are not just there for window dressing, they're proper functions with significant investment in technology. Maybe not always enough, for some businesses, but that's how competition works and has to be called to, call out individual companies, but not the whole industry. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think that's partly where, you look at this and think, oh, well, a swipe at the industry is fine, but I think you and I would say that's not the, yes, there are some players we would say are worse than others. I know what the data says and probably don't take it as serious as they should. But they're not out to deliver desperately bad service or not pay claims. I think they do, fundamentally want to pay claims.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to bring it into kind of the London market space, we worked together on the event London Market Claims for many years, and we've seen kind of, the conversation in the last 3 years has certainly, jumped forward into this is where we deliver our competitive advantage, our service. This is where customers really understand what they've bought when the claim comes in, and so getting that right is critical. Yeah. And the people that turn up to those events are not looking to slash claims ratios and expenses and just count how thin can we cut it. They're going, how can we get investment to either streamline operations, but for a customer, for better customer outcomes, not for some kind of efficiency.
Yes, and if you understood claims, and I think this is a shame that Which kind of just does this sweeping generalization type approach. The more quickly a claim is settled, the cheaper it is for the insurer. The longer it takes, and if you have to bring lawyers in and other things, and the process breaks down, the more costly it becomes because money doesn't move. The customer's unhappy. And there's complaints, there's all this stuff. So insurers want to avoid that like the plague. So really, insurers just want to be efficient on claims and pay them quickly. Big ones struggle with their processes and their legacy systems, and they've struggled a lot with talent in the business, and that's just one of those things that happens and has to be fixed, of course. But they are looking at it, and I think it's simplistic what's been said here in this kind of article. And again, it's a shame we haven't got people to take the narrative back. I don't necessarily always think the ABI does a great job of this. Criticism is due. There's no doubt criticism should be aimed at the industry for its general poor way of communicating and for its poor processes. Its systems and its technologies are poor, but a lot of people I think you do meet are in the business of wanting to pay claims in the good companies. And of course, the other final point I wanted to make was, lots of people pay very, very cheap price. They want the lowest price. So It's not a criticism of consumers. It's just the way the industry is set up. We perhaps need to look at it and say, let's be more clear up front about what sort of service you will get. If you want to pay for a Ryanair service, pay for a Ryanair service, fine. But make it clear. And if you want a gold standard claim service, pay for that. And if you don't get a service on the gold standard, then you're absolutely entitled to complain, because that's what happened.
Definitely. Anybody who's interested in a kind of London market claims, we've obviously got the event coming up on October, but we've just released the preview show, so you can go to the website and you can have a look at that. It doesn't cost anything. But interview with 4 claims directors, and it's really insightful. So all the stuff that we've talked about, creating a culture around claims, around customer service, about delivery, and then having the technology, it's well worth a listen. So do check that out. Okay, good. Let's move on. So you're just talking about systems and processes, Ben, and well, your favorite topic, Blueprint 2. Blueprint 2. 30 years of hurt. Yes. Lloyd's Blueprint going nowhere slowly. Oh, that's a bit of a crushing headline, isn't it?
The crushing article. It's not the only one we've had this year. There is a general consensus that this is, crashed into the sand. I think we've got that anecdotally from everybody we speak to. Factually, it's been delayed. 2019, we talked about this and looked at the first blueprint. And one of the things we did, I think we, again, talking up there, we talked about, we asked 6 questions that were not transparent at the time, one of which was, or a couple of which at least, were about cost and what's being spent and what's being delivered. And this article, absolutely 4 years on, nearly 5 years on, is pretty much saying the same thing. So let's just reflect on that. That means that we were saying this in 2019. We had worries and concerns about it. And we're not the oracle, obviously, nearly, but we're not the oracle. But we just decided that's just what occurred to us when we talked about it. And since we've said we've not changed our minds on it, and you've been, me less so, you've been heavily involved with lots of the, I was going to say perpetrators, but the hasn't even been a crime. even if it was rude and called them perpetrators, it's like it's kind of more like a black hole or something. But anyway, the protagonists, let's call them, and the difficulty now is that obviously this is these sort of articles come out and it's saying where do we go from here, but actually if you track it back, this stuff should have been done before. There's some basics that haven't happened here. There hasn't been transparency about cost. There hasn't been transparency about deadlines and challenges, and there's been, I wouldn't like to call it a cover-up, but I do think there's been a glossing over of a lot of things. There's been a great PR campaign to make sure it all sounds great. And one of the big central criticisms of this, drawing attention in this article, was to Velenetic 2 weeks before the first delay saying it's absolutely fine, there's no problem at all. So either that person, the chief exec, does not know what he's doing, or he was glossing it over, knowing full well it was going to be delayed, and twice since. So this is, the market wants realism, honesty, and I think that now has to be around cost. But it feels very late in the day for this to be happening. And the article finishes on the fact that Carnegie Brown, the chairman, his job is now being advertised, and he will be leaving in 2025. So the question is, will they kick this down the road, and then it'll all be, wrapped up or whatever, finished, not finished, left in the long grass.
Yeah. And I think there's also, you got to put this in context, which is that since 2019, you look at the technology landscape and the technologies that are now available and are developing at such pace, you kind of wonder whether it is still the right route. So just to build on that, this is the latest kind of update. This is my favorite newsletter, Superhuman, which is all AI related stuff. It's quite funny, actually. But Meta kind of unveiling its most powerful kind of AI model. So there's a couple of things that is interesting about this. Firstly, the latest model has 405 billion parameters, up from 70 billion previously. So that just, that's just a massive increase.
Huge,
over a few months. So it just demonstrates the rate and pace of change. The other thing to say about this is that it is an open source release. So not only is it at the cutting edge of capabilities, kind of outgunning GPT-4, but it is also open source, so developers can go in. So there's now two schools of thought about how AI is going to develop. The kind of ChatGPT model, which is kind of the biggest model to dominate them all, or the Meta kind of take on it, which is, we will give you the model, but we'll also give you the code, and you can then or customize it or bespoke it to meet your individual or organizational needs. Now, if you go down that route, bringing it back to Blueprint 2, you're kind of thinking, well, are a lot of the challenges that we're trying to overcome with this kind of Blueprint model just going to be solved through the investments being made in AI and its accessibility for organizations to use it?
Yeah, so I agree. And I think that who cares whether it works, and who knows whether it's going to work or it's not going to work. But the amount of money that's going in globally to this, and the fact that people are using, in inverted commas, AI, I just think it's changing the way that technology is being used. And I think it does feel, as we've said before, a bit more democratic. This isn't the IT department telling you what you should use. This is the stuff that you can set up yourself and your team can do. So it moves more into the front line of management and so on, and gives them cheap tools basically to use. So something like claims triaging, I suppose, for example, which seems to me to be something that could easily be done by AI. If I had a claim, or a company had a claim and said, I just need to know where it's up to in a kind of human-ish message, then that could be replied to, and I would have the communication back in a sort of live chat type of environment. So that would reduce the need for people to be spending a lot of time always, at the interface with the customer on the basics. So, and this is where it's going, of course, is how do you free up people's time? I think the Zurich person on the stage at Tintech said this, that we are basically using technology to enable people's time to be freed up to do the more difficult stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the drift. And yes, I think that it still leaves things like Blueprint and the data sets and the databases in the market and stuff that John Muir has talked about, for example, around credit control and financial controls. I think those things are really important. But if they're not, if those are just infrastructure basic things, those are not modernization. They are just fundamentals of companies' operating systems, really, to me, I think, accounting systems. So yeah, I think anything that's going to impact the appeal and the benefit of insurance and the the ease of using it and the innovation in the products and the customer service, then it feels to me that's going to happen nowhere near Blueprint. It's going to be out in this brave new world of democratic technology, I guess. We can all use.
And that's all well and good, Ben, so long as it works. Which
some idiot doesn't do the update incorrectly.
Yeah, it's like, it wasn't me.
It's kind of hilarious that I saw today that CrowdStrike had issued a press release to say it would be reviewing its procedures on updates in future. I mean, as they say, no shit, Sherlock. You really would be the basics.
Yeah.
So yeah, the IT outage. Well, everybody knows about it, and it's called in the insurance parlance a system failure coverage. Right. That's what's triggered in the policy. So this isn't cyber hacks or malevolent actors. So it also would then. So there could be separate clauses like around system failure, and but they knock into things like BI contingency claims that also could get triggered then. And anyway, I think the point of this article, to put this one up, is that Beazley, having one of the largest kind of shares of cyber, was immediately onto this, saying that actually they are not expecting disproportionate claims. They're not expecting it to hit its reinsurance stack and a tower, the reason for that is because they have these kind of limited hours, deductibles called hour deductibles. So 8 to 12 hours. If it only lasts that, then you don't have the big payouts. So it's a time-based policy in a way. And also they don't underwrite. I don't think many underwrite this sort of stuff for the airlines because the losses are instant and huge. And even the reinsurers can't cover those. So, they reckon an 80 to 120 million claims for Beazley with their 8% share. Multiply that up. I suppose you're talking about a few billion overall in insurance losses, but nothing the industry can't deal with. But as you say, and everybody else said, warning shot, the more dependent we become on technology, the more things will fall apart if it goes wrong. And it can go wrong because they're all codependent, these systems, and they're pretty messy.
Yeah, indeed. So a word of a caution from the Burgess and Bolton weekly wrap-up. If you're in charge of IT systems, just turn them on and off. Make sure the routers are plugged in.
Be careful when you do the update.
Yeah, and you'll sleep soundly at night.
Make sure you can boot the computer up when the update starts.
Yeah. Sound advice. Right, good. We covered quite a lot of ground there. So we are now going to play part 2 of our interview with John Muir. Now, if you remember, last week, regular viewers and people on Catch Up can go back and watch it. But we had part 1 last week where John was talking about his 49 years of experience in the London market as mainly a broker. So this is part 2. And, let's play the video and then we'll come back and chat about what he talked about.
So winding back into the mists of time, discipline. So back in the 80s, an extraordinary growth of ill discipline emerged. So I told you that there were maybe 200 syndicates. We were still in the old Lloyd's building, the 55 building, the two-story one. And the syndicates grew and grew. And I think it ended up at one stage as 366. So this may surprise some of your younger viewers, but it exploded to such an extent that we had to take over the basement car park of that building, which was called the Yellow Submarine, and fill that up with syndicates. And there was this sense that everything was booming. It wasn't, by the way. It was busting. There were so many really poor underwriters. And the way I describe it is that, you know, if you leave the front door of your house wide open every day, you're eventually going to get robbed or burgled. And they put underwriters into high-risk financial decision-making positions when they were manifestly not fit for purpose. When you look at the whole story of the spiral, which nobody wants to ever talk about, but believe you me, the spiral was a very, very big game in the market in the 80s. And what the spiral was a game where basically people played pass the parcel with risk, and stupid people would be left holding the parcel, if the parcel was, by the way, hideous claims. Remember too that Lloyd's in those days, I don't exonerate, by the way, London insurance companies either. We had mediocrity ruled, and there were some pretty low-life brokers too, operating and playing this game. But the whole way the market was headed was headed towards an inevitable state of borderline bankruptcy. Yeah. I mean, and at a time, there were a lot of people like me who sat there going, this whole thing's at risk of getting shut down. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who fixed it. It was Reconstruction and Renewal. And I'm bad with names, but he was a great guy. Former chairman of Stuart Wrightson, in fact. And he helped impose discipline. So the way that the whole market was capitalized too in the 80s. So this is a story I'll tell you about my interview process at Willis. So I was headhunted by Willis in 1987. And I wasn't hugely impressed with the chap who headhunted me and interviewed me. So I turned him down. By the way, I was always quite a difficult chap. So, but they came back in 1989 and I sort of made them beg. But during the interview, it was amusing to just hear sort of what they thought was important. They said to me, did I play golf? So I said, no, I don't play golf. Oh, that was a bit of a problem. She said, I'm not playing golf. You know, at Willis, we all typically play golf. And if you want to advance your career, we'd recommend you have lessons and join a club and play golf. So I said, well, listen, I've got to tell you, I got 3 young kids. I then, not that long after, had a 4th. I said, so I like to work quite hard. I don't think I've got time, and most importantly, I'm a tennis player, so I like to play tennis. So I'm going to have to try and see, can I succeed at Willis without taking up golf? They said, we'll move on from golf. Let's talk about being a Lloyd's name.
Right.
So they said, everybody in your position, because I came in at quite a senior position, is a Lloyd's name at Willis. So I said, right, interesting. And, we suspect you probably got the financial backing to be a Lloyd's name. So I said, yes, I'm fortunate enough to be in that position and have been for a good many years. So keep going. He said, well, are you happy for us to introduce you to the Willis Faber underwriting agency so that you can be a Lloyd's name? Because that's something we like. So I said, no, you don't. You haven't asked me if I want to be a Lloyd's name. I emphatically don't want to be a Lloyd's name. I hope we're not going to fall out over this. So it was like, this guy was semi-amazed. I'm staggered because, this is meant to be paying all your children's school fees, or whatever. So I said, so when he realized that I was quite a decisive individual, he said, well, may I just ask one question, Mr. Muir? Can you tell me why you don't want to be a Lloyd's name when we're willing to sponsor you? And I said, the reason I don't want to be a Lloyd's name is because I know a lot of Lloyd's underwriters. And that was greeted with the silence of a sort of realization that things were going wrong. Things were basically going wrong. There were way too many people in the market who simply weren't clever enough. But Lloyd's finally did something about it. I can't remember the name of the guy. He was a brilliant man.
Not Lord Levine, was it?
No, but it was it could have been under his watch.
Fine, we'll put him on there.
But it was a man who basically instituted underwriting discipline. So essentially, if your syndicate results, which they were able to monitor very closely by line underwriter, were poor, Lloyd's would go in and interview the managing agent, want to talk to the underwriter, and had the powers to close people down from writing classes of business. And that was a fantastic change, because the moment they instituted that quality of discipline into the underwriting, the number of syndicates started to reduce. So having gone to 360, it's gone down and down and down. Lots of people complain about that, but me, I'm not unhappy with that. I don't know how many there are now, 60 odd. There's still good, healthy competition within the market, so nobody feels that the place has suddenly become too diluted. And we've really got rid of poor underwriting, which obviously drags the whole market down too, because then people compete. It effectively closed that wide open door, so that scared away low-life brokers. They just disappeared because they couldn't basically steal money from stupid underwriters. And it's generally made the market a far, far better place now than it ever was.
So, John, what you're describing is this, that, back in the day, it was really about the quantity of business. You were incentivized to write quantity of business, not quality of business. So that was the big step, was it, after Equitas and, all of that stuff was really to say we impose this discipline on the market. And if you bring that forward, we've had that a bit with Decile 10, haven't we? With so that in your career, you must have seen these kind of steps towards better quality. But does that ultimately result in a market that can grow and become truly profitable?
Well, I think there's always, I'm not an underwriter, but I've got a lot of friends who are underwriters. Yeah. A lot of underwriters were put under pressure by their management and by their reinsurance program to write a volume of premium. You'd have a budget, you needed to write the premium, and that, of course, encourages bad behaviours. Yeah. The moment you're put under that level of pressure, you suddenly realise that you start off by turning down a lot of business because it's underpriced, and then you end up scrambling to write income because you suddenly discover that you're going to end up with a different set of problems. Yeah. I think now, you only have to look at the results. So underwriting results are always a fluctuating game of market forces. But the truth of the matter is that, and we're in a global market, so believe you me, other world's centres of insurance around the world can also be extraordinarily stupid. So that means that business basically stays domestically, doesn't come to London. But to me, I look at the whole thing and go, everybody should recognise and understand that there are fluctuating fortunes. Yeah. But if you look at, say, the performance over the last 5 years, the early part would be not too good, but there would be things going on. But actually, the last 3 or 4 years have been really, really good. If you said to me, where's their problems in insurance at the moment, they're much more at the consumer end than they are at the complex specialty end. And let's be honest, I'm not necessarily proud of this, but this is another truth about the London market. The London market is a specialty market. Some people call it a market of last resort. I kind of hate that. I prefer to call it a specialty market because we are very good at specialty lines. A lot of competing countries want to compete with us on that. So they go, oh, London's taking away all of our business in a certain sector. And then they compete to get it back, and they normally compete with price because policyholders, whether you like it or not, are attracted by price. As long as the security is good, that's. I kind of look at where we are as a market at the moment. We are still a specialty market. We're still slightly a market of last resort. We're a capacity market for big ticket items where people need. It's interesting as to what's going on with America at the moment in terms of the American market, because of course we've been getting a huge amount of business back from the American market, and that's basically because the American market haven't done very well with writing business because they've been too soft. Then the knee-jerk reaction is when the results go bad, they just walk away from the business. And that's kind of London's opportunity, just to sit there and wait. And then suddenly the taps get turned on and you've got a whole load of business coming in. And because we've got clever underwriters now, they recognise that, we're not being sent this business because everybody loves us, because they don't. Trust me, they don't. It's because they need us.
And John, do you see more of that expertise now? Because certainly when I talk to people in the market, and young brokers coming in, for example, they cut their teeth, if you like, on these rather esoteric, weird risks, because if you've been in the business for a while, you want all the nice stuff, I guess, as you in your book of business. But it seems to me that that's the beauty of the market, is because all of these people, young brokers come in at 7, 6 o'clock in the morning now, and they work through all this stuff. They've got to still make their way in the market. They're still going to be successful, and it is on this specialty stuff. It seems, but it's hard to automate all that, isn't it? Because it's very much a people thing as well, which is interesting.
It is, and I don't think some of it is possible to solve with technology. I think a lot of management would like to have algorithms which would fix everything. But the truth of the matter to me is, you still need to have a clever underwriter to lead the risk. And a generalist broker turns up and wants to talk to the decision maker, who would be typically the curator of the museum. You'll never get past the curator if you're a generalist. I just promise you, you'll never, ever get past the curator, because unless you've got experience of managing museum risks, which have a lot of movements because they do a lot of exhibitions around the world, a lot of risk because, oh my goodness, the value of fine art and those kind of artifacts is incredible, so high. You need to put somebody on the pitch who completely understands it. I love that about the London market. We should carry on doing that forever, because there's a report that came out in, I think, 2016, and now they've put it out again just recently, called London Matters. I'd urge everybody to read it. It's almost worth reading them both at the same time, which is what I did, just to side by side compare them. So you'll see where the market's gone during that intervening period, where we've had the misery of the COVID and all these other interventions, which arguably could. But where's the market gone? So 8 years ago, it employed 49,000 people. Today, it employs 60,000 people. These are people working in the City of London. The contribution to the economy is something that everybody listening to this should be immensely proud of. I think they characterized it by saying that the contribution to the economy from a tax revenue standpoint would be to pay for all the nurses and midwives and everything in the National Health Service 3 times over. I think that's worth being proud of. Nobody ever says these kind of things. We make an immense contribution to the British economy. You'd never know that because you never get I never see any credit for it. There's no one ever sort of banging a drum. But at least now they put out a report which says it.
So it's always great listening back to those interviews that we've done, and I think there's a part 3 as well, isn't there, Ben? That we'll show.
Yeah, it might be part 4 as well, but yeah, I'm still editing it.
Quite a lot, but
War and Peace.
Yeah,
quite a good description of the market.
But it does paint a picture, and it gives you a narrative of how we kind of got to where we are, I suppose. And it's so fascinating because we've just been talking about technology change since 2019 to now. Whereas you look back over a longer period and you could start to see that arc. What were the problems during those early years? How did they get sorted out? How did we then build on that? I think it's just fascinating. And I think one of the things that it comes back to perhaps towards the end is just talking about the role of people. And it's something that we talk about a lot on the show, whether it's about technology, whether it's about culture, whether it's about competitive advantage. It comes down to the people in the organization, what they do, how they do it. And it's really important.
And the regulator, I think, or the regulated nature of the market, because John's, the narrative for John, which is from his experience, is that really the market was going through chaos, but it was also growing up and learning about itself, and then being more than wrapped over the knuckles by the regulator every so often for practically bankrupting itself. And all of that bankrupt stuff, financial problems, was down to individuals, down to people, human behavior, if you like. The pass the parcel, just get the risk, I'll take the commission, thanks very much, don't worry, I'm not doing this work, you do that work. All of this is a picture of business that wasn't in the kind of Adam Smith mold, if you like, of how it should be done. It had gone wrong, and it had gone wrong big time, and reconstruction and renewal was vital, but also the intervention, I think, around discipline, which Lloyd's then did and has done since. So it does seem that when you look at it in the historical context, that actually, yes, there's actually really important role both of individuals as people, but also of the institutions themselves in saying you're going to do certain things and stick to them. And that, John's interesting commentary shows, cleared out all the bad actors, or not all of them, but obviously most of them, very quickly, because they couldn't make money through chicanery or dodgy dealings. And that's good, So I also think it feels to me like, despite the fact John's been 50 years in the market, and he clearly wasn't there back in the earlier days of the insurance market, but it's still got quite a way to go to grow up and to become a proper mature industry, in my view. It's not quite there. It's not there with banking yet. And that's one of the things that it claims always, why don't we get the attention that banking gets? Well, I think banking's more, it has its problems, which we won't go into now, but it is more kind of mature and corporate and less about the kind of Wild Westy side of things most of the time.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And yeah, I think I'll come back to it again. I think it's just paints that picture, that is just gives it a longevity. Is that the right word?
Yeah, the kind of long view, I guess. The long view is very useful. But listen to John. I mean, it does give you that sense of one. God, it feels bad today, but you should have seen it back in 1974 or 1980, or at each of the critical moments. But the market learns from that, of course, and I think it shows how important maybe it is to have a Lloyd's in play. And then the final point is really this point about it being a specialty market or a market of last resort, which John doesn't like as a phrase, but it does show that it's a market that's about the need, and it's important. It fulfills an important need. And I kind of think that John's commentary begged the question of whether it could be more than that in future. But I think he knows that it's got to fix a lot of its current issues and understand what it is. So he says it's very much about specialist individuals who know their stuff on the underwriting side and the broking side.
Yeah.
And I think we would say that's true in data. That's what people say. It's the knowledge of the ability to cover that esoteric risk that nobody else can do.
Yeah, definitely.
That keeps the wheels going, right?
Definitely. I think there's one thing I might push back on, which is the most recent London Market Matters report thing that we had on the show a few weeks ago, saying how much it contributes to the economy. We were troubled by some of the numbers, but I do think, and I think we said this on the show, it's really important that we're able to tell a story about what the London market actually does, what it facilitates, how it works. And hopefully these films with John, paint the picture, tell the story, and rather than it just being a kind of a very dry industry from the outside.
It's the narrative. You're right. It's much as we were nitpicking a bit about numbers and what it really meant. Did it really mean this? Did it really mean that? Kind of fact checking. But okay, so if you put that to one side, actually, the point that it does, just the point it contributes a lot to the economy is important. And I think, again, John's saying we don't shout about those things. And we've talked already about the mood music around claims.
Yeah.
The mood music around service. Yes, we've got issues, but it's not some conspiracy to defraud the nation or something, which is where it tips over to. So, I think we've got to be much better at communicating a lot of the good stuff and the positives about the market and being more honest, I think. And that's where I think the blueprint thing falls down. It hasn't been upfront about the challenges and things, and that's its main failing.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the next 48 episodes of the interview with John over the coming years. But we'll do that. Well, we'll have to do that after summer because we're all going. Well, I'm going away. You're moving house. But anyway, right. Let's move on.
We will do that. We will put the full thing up at some point as well if people want to listen to it. So I'll do that through the summer. But then,
yes, it will be available. As a full thing to watch,
and definitely worth. I think if people are interested in the whole history of just the history of the market from a very entertaining person speaking about it, and someone who's actually there. Yeah. And particularly, things around claims and the processes and things that could be fixed. I think it's very enlightening and quite fun.
Yeah, indeed. Right. Talking of fun, we have this.
What up, though? It's Big Snoop D-O-double-G, and I'm an English voice from the United States.
There you go. Snoop Dogg back.
He's back on the show.
Back on the show. Snoop
Good,
Dogg.
You can get into comment.
Yeah. Reach for comments. Snoop Dogg.
Well, yes, he's carrying the Olympic torch. He's been on our show. He's had a great career
Yeah.
in rap, and now he's carrying the torch. What a stalwart he is.
He is only 52. Jeez.
Yeah.
So, roughly the same age as me.
He's done more in the 52 years than most of us, I imagine.
Yeah, indeed. So the Olympics start on. Well, actually, they started today, Ben, with earlier on in the week because it isn't Friday today, even though it is for you viewers. With football and rugby and things. But anyway, I don't quite understand that. But at the Olympic opening ceremony is tonight, Friday. I'm looking forward to it. Always get into it. What's your favorite sport that you're not into that you get into?
I'm one of the things I will. This is more Paralympics, but I quite liked the medley swimming because of the way that they time it according to the different disabilities, and it works out so that it's incredibly exciting and incredibly tight. So I'm kind of going to keep an eye on that when it comes up. But obviously that's the Paralympics, not the main Olympics. Sport climbing, because I'm doing a bit of climbing now, as I've bored everybody with, and so it's a kind of big new thing in the I think they had it as a trial sport in the last one, and now they've got it as a proper one. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to look at, and then there is the cycling as well, which might be quite interesting. Yeah,
I love the cycling and swimming, but break dancing, Ben.
Is that in it this year? I didn't know that. I thought I saw something about it. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a trial or is it a proper one?
I think it's full on. So yeah, I'm intrigued.
I thought I might watch the whipping horses one as well. I thought that would be good.
Oh yeah.
Then I realised that was a thing that they're not doing.
That's
whipping
shouldn't
horses.
be done. Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that.
The whipping horses event. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't try that at home. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Horses. No. So yeah, that would be good. Oh, breakdancing. Yes. Okay. Well, my son is the chief correspondent for the Telegraph covering it, so I'll get hopefully get an inside track on it all.
Good
as we go through.
Excellent. And just keep with the sport theme, I probably went on about this, but I went to the end of the Tour de France, last two stages last weekend. I just thought I'd share a photo.
There's you on the bike, mate.
That's me in the yellow.
Are you in the yellow?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Shed a few pounds.
Yeah, well,
I'd found more than a few pounds. He's like a wraith.
It is. But that's a rollout in Nice. Beautiful day, nice. Beautiful time, and all the big names there. So it was great. Yeah, really good.
I mean, seriously, they are very thin now, aren't they?
They are incredible. Yeah.
There's nothing to them, is there really?
And I've seen that he's pulled out of the because he's won the Giro as well.
Yeah.
So before this, he's won the Giro and the Tour. Yeah. First time that's happened since 1988. Marco Pantani.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The Pirate. So I mean, it's staggering. So he's pulled out of the Olympics due to fatigue, which I'm surprised about. I mean, it's incredible because the logistics of the just moving that whole event from town to town to do a stage every day is amazing. And they build a stage, they introduce the cyclists on the stage. I guess they've got to do that every day. So it's quite an early start. And then they set off racing at whatever time it is, 1:30, 2 o'clock.
It's cool that we talked about this. It's cool that they use technology so overtly as well and openly, and it becomes almost part of the thing, doesn't it? I think insurance could do that, do more with it, about modeling risks, and it's educational really as to power ratings and all that stuff is kind of interesting. But I was trying to find an insurance angle on it, and that was my pathetic attempt.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, you can, as you're watching the tour, you can, waiting for them to come in, you can see them, they're live tracked, so you can see them on the route, but you can also then get the data from individual cyclists, what their speed is, their cadence, all sorts of data. And it does make it it makes it really good fun because you know what's coming down the track. You kind of where the race is, and of course you can watch.
You're like an instant expert on it, aren't you? So you're engaged then, and you're drawn in.
Yeah. So it's very good. It's a very good weekend, and Nice is beautiful. You must have been to Nice, Ben. Yeah.
I have actually stayed in the hotel that Madonna did her nude photo book, which was a rather strange place, I must say. It was like going back into the 1920s or something. And,
right.
People who obviously lived there, very rich people. Yes, they did a presentation there a few years ago, but they wouldn't take cards. It was cash only, and there were no TVs in the room and things like that. Yes, it was a slightly strange experience, really. But it's got an infinity pool where she posed.
Right. I see.
Yeah.
Good. Well, there you go. Who thought we'd end on that? Right.
Madge in the nude.
Madge in the nude. You can tell we've got a bit demob happy. Okay, right. We're off for a bit of a summer break. We'll be back in the autumn. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great summer, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody, if you're going on holiday, and have a good summer.
Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.